If you love soft sugar cookies, this recipe is for you. Hey everyone, I'm Dina from simplyhomecooked.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make these incredibly soft and chewy Lofthouse style sugar cookies. These cookies are one of my favorites as a kid, and it's still my favorite to this day. So if you ever had Lofthouse cookies from the store, oh boy, you are in for such a treat because the homemade version is so much better. It's really, really good. Now, before we get started, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get right into the recipe. In a large bowl, add 1 cup of unsalted softened butter, so a total of 2 sticks. Then add a 1/4 cup of room temperature cream cheese and 1 cup of granulated sugar. Now use an electric hand mixer to beat everything together. Make sure to start off on low speed and then slowly work your way to the highest speed setting. You want to mix the butter until it's light and fluffy and pale in color. So that'll take about 2 to 3 minutes total. Now add 1 large egg along with 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then go ahead and add 3 tablespoons of light corn syrup. The purpose of the corn syrup is to make the cookies extra chewy and super soft for a longer period of time. Now if you prefer not to use corn syrup, you can totally omit it. Now grab your hand mixer and mix everything on medium speed until it's all thoroughly combined. Then you want to grab a spatula and just run it along the sides and the bottom of the bowl to make sure to catch any little clumps of butter that might have been left behind. Now we can go ahead and add in all your dry ingredients. So place a fine mesh sieve right over the bowl of the butter, and then add 3 1/4 cups of flour, half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Then gently sift everything into the bowl. Now use your electric hand mixer to mix everything on low speed. You want to make sure it's on the lowest speed setting, or the flour is going to fly everywhere. Then grab a spatula and run it along the sides of the bowl again, just to ensure that everything is combined very, very well. Now place a large piece of plastic wrap on your work surface and then transfer the cookie dough right on top. Then fold the edges of the plastic wrap right over the dough. Then you want to close it up tightly and kind of press the dough into somewhat of a disc shape. Then place the cookie dough in the refrigerator for about 1 to 2 hours to firm up the dough. In the meantime, let's work on that delicious cookie frosting. So in a large bowl, add 1 cup of unsalted softened butter. Then use your electric hand mixer to mix everything on high speed for just a few minutes or until the butter is light and pale in color, just like the cookie dough. Now sift in 4 1/2 cups of powdered sugar. If you prefer your frosting to be a little more softer, you can add a little less powdered sugar. And if you prefer it to be a little more firm, go ahead and add a little bit more powdered sugar. It's all personal preference, but I found that 4 1/2 cups is the perfect middle. And if at any point you feel like the frosting is just too thick and firm, you can just thin it out with a splash of milk. Once all the powdered sugar is sifted into the butter, add 1 tablespoon of milk. Doesn't matter if it's whole milk or 2%, both works. And you'll also need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract as well. Now use your electric hand mixer to mix everything on low speed, just until you don't see any more clumps or patches of powdered sugar visible. You just want it to be nice and smooth and creamy. At this point, you can leave the frosting just as it is, or this is where you would add the food coloring if you wanted to. I stuck with the classic pink and I started with just 1 drop. You always want to add just 1 drop and then work your way up to see how pigmented you want the frosting. If it's the holidays, you are more than welcome to split the frosting in half and then add green food coloring to the one and then red food coloring to the other, just to give it a nice Christmassy feel. Oh, I almost forgot. You also want to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to the frosting. That salt is very necessary because that frosting is pretty sweet and you want to balance that sugar out with a little bit of salt. Once your dough has chilled, you want to place a large sheet of parchment paper on top of your work surface. Then unwrap the chilled cookie dough and place it right on top of that parchment paper. Then you want to rip off another large piece of parchment paper and place it right on top of that cookie dough. Now grab a rolling pin and begin rolling out the dough to about a 1/4 inch thick. The dough will be pretty firm after the fridge, so have patience. You just want the dough to be very cold because it is a pretty soft dough, and once you let it soften too much, it can get messy. So have patience during this step. Once the dough is all rolled out, remove the top piece of parchment paper and begin cutting out your cookies. And I used a cookie cutter that was 2.5 inches in diameter. I found that to be the perfect size. So just cut out as many cookies as you can. Then use a thin spatula to gently transfer the cookies over to a baking sheet lined with some parchment paper. At this point, the butter in the cookie dough will begin to soften, so be very gentle when transferring it over to the baking sheet. Now gather up all the scraps that were left behind, then work it into a ball again and then kind of press it down into a disc. Then place a sheet of parchment paper on top and then use a rolling pin to roll it out to a 1/4 inch thick again. And just like the first time, you want to use a cookie cutter to cut out as many cookies as you can. Then continue this process until you have no more cookie dough left. So you should get about a total of 28 cookies out of this recipe. Now preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and bake the cookies for 6 to 8 minutes or until they just start to slightly turn brown on the bottom of the edges. Then let the cookies cool for about 5 minutes on the baking sheet before transferring them to a wire rack. And now for the best part, it is time to layer on that delicious frosting onto your cookies. And at this point, this is where the kids could really get involved. My kids absolutely love decorating these cookies. And you also want to make sure to add on the sprinkles as well, because what is a Lofthouse cookie without the sprinkles? And now grab a cold glass of milk or a hot cup of coffee and enjoy those deliciously scrumptious Lofthouse cookies. One of my favorite things about these cookies is that they stay fresh longer than a typical cookie. So once you've got them all frosted and set, you want to place them in an airtight container and then pop them in the fridge. Yes, you want to refrigerate them. Trust me on this, once you try these cookies refrigerated, I don't think you'll ever go back to like a room temperature cookie. It is so good. The texture is just extra chewy and it's just extra delicious. It's unexplainable. So if you do that, you want to make sure to serve it with a cold glass of milk or even a hot cup of coffee. And you will thank me later because it's really good. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. That is so